Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Art Matters podcast presented by the Outer Loop Theater Experience, where we look at art that matters and we explore the question, what are we here to do? I'm Melissa Wilson, and I'm the marketing director and Inner Enso facilitator for the Outer Loop.
And I am Rachael Yoder, and I am the artistic director of the Outer Loop.
Yeah, and we're so excited to have you guys with us for this episode.
Yes, we are. And if you've been a listener of this podcast for a long time, then you know that we like to start with a game, and that game is called 5 Things. We're going to shoot each other a category, and then the other person has to respond with the first 5 things that come to mind. No thinking aloud. Okay. I am going to throw you a category first. Are you ready?
I'm so ready.
Okay. 5 things that people have said to you after you tell them that you are going to Tanzania.
They're like, oh my gosh, your work is paying for it? Like, people are like, you get to go to Africa? People keep asking me if it's dangerous. And I'm like, I don't think so, but who's to say? People keep asking, they're like, what are you doing? What is theater? You work for a theater company. Like, what is that even? What are you doing in Tanzania? People are asking a lot about like mosquitoes and disease and all of those sorts of things. And also about just like where we're staying. They're like, is it a hotel? Is it? And I'm like, I think it's kind of somewhere in the middle of like, it's not like a hotel, but it is a place for people to stay, you know? It's not just like someone's house or a tent or something. So
both of which I have done, but yeah, not this time.
Yeah. So yeah, I think those are my 5 things. There's been a lot.
Those all track.
Yeah.
I have also heard all of those things.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah.
Love it.
Good stuff. All right. My category for you is, what are 5 things that you're excited to eat in Tanzania because you can like only get them there?
Oh, so good. Okay, number 1, chapati. Number 2, if Edgar makes his pumpkin soup. This should really be number 1. I'm going to swap these if we're going in orders of importance. If we have the opportunity, I think we probably will, to see Edgar, and if he makes his pumpkin soup, it is the best food that there is, period, full stop.
Wow. I'm excited.
And it will live up to the hype. Like, I feel 100% confident in saying that with
amazing,
knowing that you will agree with me. Okay,
great.
Chapati, Edgar's pumpkin soup, Mama Joyce's wali wanazi, ubwa wanazi. It's like a coconut rice that Mama Joyce makes, and it is like, it'll not only will it be delicious, it will also heal your soul. So those 3 things. The fruit is like out of control. It's like you taste the fruit there, like a pineapple and a mango, and you're like, oh, I've never eaten one of these before because it has never tasted like this. It's like it's like in HD. Especially the pineapple and the mango are like out of control.
I'm excited.
And then there is like at Babu Beach Cafe, you'll meet the most incredible woman, Miriam, who owns it, and she makes like a banana smoothie that is like insane. It's amazing. Oh yeah, I feel like I could keep going on, but those are the first 5 things.
Amazing.
I can't wait. Actually, it's funny that you asked me that because I've been like dreaming about those things all week because I know that we're leaving soon, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm gonna eat this, I'm gonna eat this, I'm gonna eat this. I can't wait to eat all the things. Yeah,
good. It's top of mind.
It is. Yes.
Amazing.
All the food. Yeah.
Yay.
You just feel so, I mean, I'm not going off track, but like you just feel so much better, the food there, because all of our food here has like chemicals and additives, and all of the meat is pumped up full of like crazy hormones, and like we just don't even know what we're eating. But the experience of eating the food there is just, it's a lot more natural, and your body like responds really well to it. So I always wind up feeling just physically a lot better, partially because of the food is higher quality.
That's cool. That's
Mhm.
exciting.
Things to
I'm gonna
look
get
forward
back
to.
and be all snobby about my food. Be
You are.
like,
You'd be like, "Did you grow this on your own farm? All right then. I
I
don't
don't
want
want it.
it."
Oh my gosh, good. Well, as you can probably guess from the topics of the five things, we're going to be talking about Tanzania and the Humanity Project. But we've talked about this before, and I think that it's important that we get Rachel's perspective on this trip and on this project that we do, because Michael's talked so well and so extensively about it. But I think it can just be helpful for you as our listeners to get a second perspective on what all this looks like, and specifically Rachel's perspective as an actor, as someone who's, more focused on whatever, emotions and different sorts of things that are her specialties. So we just get these two sides of a really important coin to us. So yeah, that's what this episode is going to be about, and we'll also get a little time for me to ask some Q&A questions at the end, since it's my first time going, and I feel like every time I talk to Rachel for the last like 2 months, I'm like, what about this, what about that, do I need to pack this? And she's been so helpful. Yeah, so we'll have that at the end. But yeah, I just wanted to start off by asking about the first time you went. I would love to get a little like expectation versus reality. Like what were you expecting going in, and then what surprised you about what actually happened?
Hmm. Yeah, that's a great question. I think it was almost like hard to know what to expect, if that makes sense. And I think you and I have talked about this with your in preparation for your trip. But I mean, Michael had gone before I went, and I had obviously heard things and seen pictures, but um I just had never had an experience like that. I had never traveled to the developing world before. Um I had just never done or seen or experienced anything like it. And so I almost had no idea what to expect. And I did get all of the same questions that, people were asking you, like, oh, is it safe? And what about the bugs? And what about, what is all this stuff? I was like, I don't know. I don't know what it's going to be like. Um, so I was very nervous to go the first time. I mean, excited, but also just there was a lot of unknowns, I think, the first time. And then what I couldn't have anticipated, but was overwhelmed by and continued to be overwhelmed by every time I return, is how incredibly beautiful the culture is there. And it's very different from my experience of the culture here. It was my first time being visually an outsider somewhere. I'd never been, like you can look right at me and know, oh, you're not from here. I've never been in that position before. So I was a little bit nervous about that. And that you would think what would happen with that is like a feeling of otherness, or that you'd feel very like outside of what's happening there, or that, you feel like out of place or uncomfortable about that. But because of how the culture is there, the word that you will hear the most when you're there is karibu, which means you are welcome. I mean, you can't go 5 minutes without somebody telling you that you are welcome. It's like the constant messaging that you're getting is you are welcome here, you are welcome here. Ooh, getting emotional. You're welcome here. And coming from a culture that I feel very much like our culture here, you get the opposite message all the time, no matter who you are. It's like our country is constantly telling people, you're not welcome here. You're not welcome here. Or being, any kind of body other than a white, cis, straight male body, you're getting that message from somewhere. You're not welcome. People like you aren't welcome here. You're not welcome here. And then to go and be immersed in this culture where, I mean, visually, I can't be more of an outsider. I'm not from there. And everyone is constantly telling people I don't know, people who had nothing to do with the project, people who didn't know us. It's just like the constant messaging. You're welcome. You're welcome in my home. You're welcome here. You're welcome here. You're welcome. You're welcome. Um, and that permeates how everyone treats each other, and how your interaction with everybody comes from that place of we're all in this together. and no matter who you are, you're welcome here, and we're all here to help each other. It's like the underlying heartbeat of human interaction and everywhere from everyone you meet. And that is, it's overwhelming to be around. And it is like a balm to the soul coming from a place where it's the opposite of that. And it's everybody's in it for themselves. And it's all about, how do I advance my own self? It feels, you know, in a lot of ways like a very self-focused culture. And then going to like a very other focused culture is a very healing experience, and that I couldn't have anticipated. Um, and that's what I think was a lot of the experience of that first trip, and continues to be, and is the thing that I most look forward to and am excited by, knowing that we're going back.
Yeah. That's so beautiful. Yeah, wow. That is so beautiful. I think, yeah, you touched on this, but I would just love to hear you expand a little more into like how that first trip kind of immediately impacted your perspective on life and on your personal purpose, both there and when you got back to the US.
Yeah, that was huge because um I've never been able to have, prior to that first trip, I don't feel like I was ever able to have like that big of an impact on anyone or anything, really. Like in small ways, sure. Like there are the little things that, you could do something for someone, or even, I would feel sometimes through a performance or something, like with my artistry, that like I had done a little thing, maybe a small thing. And oh hey, I helped somebody, or, could help people in small ways, but um just not, I had never been, resourced enough to have any kind of major impact.
Mhm.
So with that first trip, and with the money that we were able to fundraise to build the clinic, and then the project had started before we got there. So when we arrived, because we'd sent money in advance, and then when we arrived, things were already kind of in motion, and then the clinic was completely finished by the time that we left. And watching that process happen, of like, there was not a hospital here when we arrived. And then, we worked with everyone in the village for 3 months. And then there it was by the end of it, because of theater. There's just nothing like that experience. It's like the tremendous amount of impact because of how far money goes there. That amount of money here would have, you could not build a hospital with that. I mean, you can't even buy a car with it, honestly. So like the scale of the impact that I was able to be a part of
Mhm.
was something that I had never experienced before. And so once you experience that one time and you realize like, whoa, wait a minute, through, look what we can do with the resources that we do have and how much of an impact we can have. And that's crazy. So we have to keep doing this. I mean, once you know that one time, I mean, how can you stop? You can't. And it just feels incredible to be able to have that much of an impact, and to be able to have do so much helping all at one time with, you know, comparatively really small resources. I had never experienced anything like that before. And that really gave me a sense of purpose, of how much larger everything was, is like, I guess it connected me to something much, much larger than myself, and much, much larger than my own small circle and my own small, corner of the world. It was like, whoa, like way more impact, way more people are being touched by this. I'm connected to much more than I realized through this work. And that I've never been able to let go of that, because that feels tremendously important.
Totally. Yeah. Do you feel like there are ways that that has directly impacted like the art and the work that you do when you're in the US the rest of the year?
It really has. I think that, I'd always been drawn to acting and to theater and just known, hey, yeah, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I love this, like I get a lot out of this. Like I know that I'm a storyteller. I know that this is, you know, drawn to it like a calling, you know, this is what I'm supposed to do. Um, but I think like this experience connected me to a sense of the whole in that it's not just about, oh, here I am, like having feelings and, you know, transmitting them and playing this character. Like it has changed my mindset from, you know, what am I, how do I do this, or how do I play this character, or how do I make this thing, or how do I best do this, to like, how can I be of service? And so what I mean by that is, you know, being of service through the Humanity Project work, and the story was in service of doing this larger thing, creating this larger project, creating
Mhm.
this hospital. So that was, oh, it feels so much better when it's in service of something bigger. And so even, you know, with every time I get an audition or an acting project, or I try to look at it now, not from the sense of like, oh, how do I do the best audition, or how do I make this, you know, how do I make this work? How am I in service of the story? And how is the story in service of somebody else's healing or deeper insight into themselves or whatever? And I found that that mindset shift, first of all, makes the process more enjoyable. And second of all, makes the process more meaningful. And that was a big reframe for me. And I do try to take that into my work here, is just always making sure that I'm starting from that question.
That's so cool. I love that. And I know that like for me and other artists or even people from like non-art related uh careers and passions that are listening, like that is so inspiring and such a call to I think just like that there is a higher responsibility that we can elevate to, and that not only will that serve others but also that it serves the craft in and of itself, that it makes it more enjoyable, that it makes it better because it's for someone outside of yourself. So that's
Which
so
I think
cool.
is, you know, it's laid in there in the best, you know, acting training. It's like, okay, well, it's about serving your partner, and it's about, you know, like how are you setting them up for success? But it can be hard when, you know, I'm not with my partner in a like theater process. I'm instead in my room doing a self tape, and it's me and the wall. And you know, like I have no idea how to serve my partner because my partner's on Zoom and I don't know them, and you know, it's like it gets lost, and then it
Yeah.
doesn't feel good, and then you watch your tapes back a million times, you're like, I don't know, I don't even know what this is. um
Mhm.
I think it's easy to lose track of the how am I of service piece, and a reminder will make the whole thing feel better.
Totally. Yeah. No, that's so good. That's so good. So that kind of came out of that first trip for you, but now you've been what, 6 or 7 times since then?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So how have those consecutive, like, do you have just a couple stories that you could pull out of the last 6 or 7 years of things that have continued to change you, change your perspective, change your purpose?
Yeah, I think the biggest one really, last year's trip hit me in a way that was very different because 2 years prior to that was when we first started collaborating with, it was a new group of artists that were in the village of, we started working with a separate village, the village of Msona, and an arts group there, and collaborating on theater pieces with them to then serve their community. And the first project that we collaborated with them on, they told the story of the need for their village really needed a market. There was like no centralized place to get food, and they had to walk to Maloka, which is like a half-hour drive. So imagine that walk.
Whoa.
Really challenging, and people were, you know, trying to, you know, take canoes and things and getting attacked by hippos, and it was just like it was very dangerous to try to even buy food. Um, and so we collaborated with that arts group on a piece of theater that everyone, you know, worked on together, and told the story of the village's need for a market, you know, brought that back, fundraised, and then last year the project was completely implemented. And because it was the first time that we had worked with that arts group and they didn't really know us as well as the people in Maloka did, there was a lot of hesitation about if this was really going to be a thing. And there was some
Mhm.
distrust. It was like, we've seen, Westerners before, and they say they're going to do something and they don't do it. And so, like, we'll see, And so there was a lot of like, there was just a lot of that at the beginning of the project. And we were like, trust us, we do what we say we're going to do. Like, we will be back and there will be a market here. So finally, we earned the trust of the arts group, but not necessarily the trust of the village yet. And I think a lot of the artists in the village were telling the people in the village, like, hey, no, this is going to be a thing. We're going to have a market because of this collaboration. And people in the village were like, yeah, okay, sure you will,
Mhm.
and then last year when we went and the market was completed, the whole thing was completed, we went to visit, and the oh god, feelings, the arts group had created a performance um to thank us, and also to like tell the story of what the market had done for the community since. And without words, just really through like song and dance, and there was a little bit of scenes, but it was mostly communicated, I think, through song and dance. The communication, even with the language barrier, that they expressed, like, they told the story of nobody believed that this was going to happen, and now look. And like, there were all these dance moves, like gesturing towards the market, like, look, let them talk, let them laugh, it's here, like. And then like coming up to us, like, with gestures of like, thank you, and like, we're in this together, and like, look what we've all done, and like, now the market is here, and like, now let everybody talk, and like, we all know the truth of the situation, and we all know what we can accomplish together through art. And they also communicated to us that the level of respect for artists in the village after that project had happened, because the arts group brought the market to the village, had gone from,
Mm.
we have no respect for the artists in the village, like, why are you wasting time playing on your drums and dancing when we have to go be at the farm, to, oh, everybody respects the artists in the village because look what they made happen. That has changed me as an artist more than anything has changed me as an artist in my life, and realizing the power that we do have as artists to help each other through storytelling, through artistry. It does matter, it does mean something, and you can affect your community, you can change things with it. So that experience, I think, more than anything else, and I can't wait to, we're going back to collaborate with that same arts group this year. um yeah, that's meant a lot.
Yeah, that's so sweet. That's so sweet. The impact that you were able to have on the village, not just to bring them that market, but also on their perception of the arts, on people's, you know, like, I'm sure it was a boost in confidence too, to be like, oh, everyone's telling me that this is a waste of my time. And now not only do they see that it's not a waste of my time, but I can have a visual representation that it's not a waste. That's just so cool.
I think we feel that here too. I mean, not
Yeah.
maybe to the same degree, but it's just like there's just this constant like looking down on artists, like, well, oh, with your games, that's so cute. Like, that's not a career, or like, that's not anything that matters. It's like we're constantly getting that message. And those of us who are called to be artists know that that's not true. And it can be really frustrating to exist inside of a society that doesn't always value you and doesn't always see the worth in what you bring. And yet, of course, when everybody's sad, what's the first thing that they want to do? They want to turn on some music, or they want to turn on Netflix to like make them feel better. And then still, sometimes people are unable to make that connection between this art thing is the thing that makes me feel better when I don't feel good. um
Mhm.
yeah, we're constantly giving the message that there's no value in what we do, and this was just a very tangible proof that that's not true.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, so to kind of wrap up this time, I would love to hear how, like, the ways that you now function day to day out of your purpose, um, how do those things tie back to your time there, to the people there that you now know and love? What are some of those like direct applications for you?
Mm. Yeah, I think um I'm constantly asking myself the question, why am I doing this with anything that I do, and making sure that it's aligned with my purpose and with my larger why and with my own value system. And sometimes that's really hard because there are things that we do have to do to, earn a living, or, like some of the commercial auditions that I get, it's a really challenge because sometimes I'm like, why am I doing this? Like paint commercial, like what is this
Uh-huh.
really like in service? Is this in service of my larger why? And like some of those questions are difficult to answer. So I do feel like I'm constantly asking myself that question and making sure that what I'm doing is in service of something larger, because I know that I don't feel good when I veer too far off of that. Um, and certainly, like, sometimes you do have to do the paint commercial, because guess what, then I can pay my rent, and like that's also something that I need to do to survive. And so, like, making sure that it all adds up. But anytime I've considered some kind of like, some of the corporate thing, or it's like, why, like, always just why am I doing this, and how does this connect to something larger? um that's been important for me to continually question myself on.
Mhm. Yeah. No, that's good. Just the continuous recentering of purpose is so important.
And it's good that we do go back to Tanzania every year, because I do. There's actually, like, my therapist was asking me yesterday, like, how do you feel about going back? And I said, like, that I'm looking forward to connecting to something larger than myself, because I think, like, because of the way our culture is structured, just because of the way that things are here a lot of the time, like, it can just feel like a lot of navel gazing going on. It's just like good to like look out and
Yeah.
connect
Yeah.
back to, like, yeah, like something very very real. Because, and I'm not saying that our problems aren't real, because they are real, those are real
Mhm.
problems too. But it can be a sobering reality check sometimes.
Totally. Totally. Yeah. Cool. Anything else you want to touch on before we do our little Q&A?
I would love to do our little Q&A.
Amazing. All right, let's do it. Okay. I want to start with the one that am like most excited to ask because I'm so curious to hear what you're going to say. Tips on making friends in the village.
Oh, tips on making friends in the village.
Yeah.
It's so funny because it's so not hard. because
Oh, God.
because everyone already is going to be so excited to meet you. I mean, even if you weren't connected with us in our work there, and we hadn't been working there for all these years, like, it's just like I said, the culture is so welcoming and so wonderful that, like, even if you were just on your own, people would like be very happy to make friends with you. But because we've been going for now 8 years, and we have so many, I mean, we probably know most people in the village, and they already know us and love us, and we know them and love them. And so anyone that we travel with, they're just so thrilled to meet. And so, just by nature of like existing, you're gonna have every friend.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no need to worry about that. I mean, honestly, and just knowing like two entire words in Swahili, and you'll have all the friends you need.
Great. Great. That's actually my next question is what are the best like back pocket phrases? Like can you teach us how to say hello and a couple other important ones?
Yes. Well, asante is like going to be the most important word, which means thank you.
Okay.
Um, if all you had was asante, like, you would be doing great, because everyone is good. The first thing everyone's going to say to you is karibu, which is you are welcome, and then you say asante, and then it's like, great, we're good. And
Uh-huh.
like, anytime anything happens, if you throw out asante, then you're probably good to go. So that's the most important one.
Sweet.
you can like a good greeting to use for anything is just habari, which is kind of like how are you. um and then you can, tack on fancy things like to make it habari za asubuhi is like good morning, and habari za mchana is good afternoon, habari za jioni is good evening. But if all you have is habari, that's totally fine because it's just like how are you. um if you want people to think you're like super cool and down with the slang and the kids and stuff, you could say mambo VP, which is like, hey, what's up? That's like the cool way to say hello, that all the kids will think you're cool.
It
When
even
we thought,
sounds cool.
well, no
Mambo
one's
VP.
expecting you to say it. Like looking at you, they won't expect it from you. So if you're like Mambo VP, it's like, whoa, whoa. How do you know about that? Yeah, that's a good one. If you,
Amazing.
yeah, just come in and just that's just the first thing you say to everybody, then you're gonna have every friend you've ever wanted.
Great. So excited. I love making friends.
Yeah,
Okay.
amazing.
Um, what is the most common mistake that you see people make like the first time that they go that I should
Mm,
know about?
that's good. Um, okay, interesting. The first two things that came to mind are like opposite ends of the spectrum, but they're like both common mistakes, but it just depends on the type of human that you
Uh-huh.
are. So, on the one end of the spectrum, the first mistake is like assuming that you're going to feel fine and ready to do a million things right when you get there.
Uh-huh.
Because I think people are like, "Oh, I'm like this is like a big I want to like get every minute out of it. I want to like suck the marrow out of the whole trip, and I want to make sure I do everything. And it has to start immediately right when I get there. And like,
Uh-huh.
no, I don't want any wasted minutes with resting. Like, no, that's a big mistake. You need to rest. You need to, like, it is a long journey. Your body has been through a lot. And not only is it a long journey, and I'm not even just talking like jet lag here, like adjusting to the amount of change and difference, and not even just physical but like cultural, emotional, like there's a lot to take in, and it can be very overwhelming, and you need a couple of days. So just like expect nothing of yourself from the first few days, because you're just going to be like a sponge just taking it all in. So don't try to
Uh-huh.
do too much. On the opposite end of the spectrum is well, I guess, yeah, like assuming that things will like work the same way that they work here is
Sure.
another common mistake. Like expecting like, oh, like of course there will be Gatorade here. you know
Uh-huh.
like,
Sure.
like no, or like of
Uh-huh.
course there will be toilet paper in the bathroom. Like,
Mm-hmm.
just like little things that we just like expect are like maybe certain people from our culture just expect are how the world works, are actually not how the world works. So and like of course like things will happen at the time that we said they're going to happen. Like time functions a little bit differently. So just like, yeah, making assumptions that things will function the way that you're used to them functioning is a common mistake that I see. And some people get very frustrated when that's not the case, when that turns out not to be the case. So I like to go in with a mindset of, and encourage other people to go in with a mindset of just like, just like you're in control of nothing, just like surrender to the experience and
Yeah,
just let it happen, which can be hard for, certain personality types, myself included.
totally. Totally. Yeah. All right. My last question kind of ties us back to the very beginning of the episode, which is it dangerous? Like
Mm.
with animals or people? Like I feel like people keep asking me like, is it safe? Is it safe? And I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I also got that, and great question and fair question. It just comes from a place of not knowing. And
Yeah.
it is the safest. Like safer than safe, because the culture and the way that that government systems work, and like interhuman communications and everything functions in Tanzania. A lot of it is built on the first president of Tanzania, Julius Nyerere, was very intentional about creating peace amongst all the different tribes.
Hmm.
in Tanzania. And so a lot of the government systems and structures are built on that, like maintaining peace. And like, so it culturally is very important that like everyone is at peace with each other. We all work in harmony. Like, yes, we're different, but like we all work together. That is like not only just like a norm of the way that people behave, but it's also baked into the systems there. So it's like, it's a very
Mm.
peaceful, there's not a lot of like, government warfare or like any of that. It's a very safe place to visit. And it's a culture of respect. And people just generally, it's built into the language, it's built into human relations that people respect each other. And so there's like a safety and a respect that underlies almost everything. So you're like never safer. Also, with the work that we've been doing there for the last 8 years, is like not only is it safe even if you weren't coming with us or traveling with us, but like there are like 1,000 different protective layers around us of like people who know and love us and who want to protect the work that we're doing. It's like you're never without like security in some way, even if you don't know that like the kid walking next to you is there to just make sure that you're okay. But like that'll
Aw.
just be happening without you even knowing it. You're like, hey, I feel like that kid's been walking around us for a while. And then you see his mom and we know his mom. And it's like he saw us. So he was like sent to like just make sure that everything's okay. It's just like you're constantly, constantly protected. So yeah, it like could not be safer. Yeah.
That's so sweet. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, yay. Thank you so much
Yeah.
for sharing with us about Tanzania and getting me, and I'm sure our listeners, excited about this summer for me to go and for everyone else to get to see all the amazing things that happen.
Yeah, I can't wait to go. I'm not sure when this episode will air, if we'll be still there or back, but just really excited for everyone who's been supporting our work to just see how much of an impact you've made, because we're getting updates from Michael and things have just grown tremendously. And babies are being born at the hospital, and
Mhm.
people are getting food from the market, and just like things are um, you've all really had an impact. So for anyone who's listening who's supported our work, just like a big asante sana from all of us.
Mhm. Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for listening to this episode. You can find the rest of our episodes every Thursday wherever you get your podcasts.
Yes, and our call to action this week is we would just like for you to think of, maybe it's not a big way, but like what's one small way that you can be of service to something other than yourself this week. And you can email us some of those answers if you've got a good thought there to podcast@outerlooptheater.org. We would love to hear from you.
Amazing. All right. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.